Mick, thanks for your time. Firstly, what do these planes mean for Ukraine?
Well, good morning. It's good to be with you. I think it's fair to say that if there's one area where the Russians have performed worse than on the ground, it's actually in the air. The Russians invaded Ukraine without securing control of the air. Their air force has not coordinated well with their ground forces. So the Ukrainian air force is still viable. The Pentagon briefings have said that most of their aircraft, or many of them, are still intact. So this will add to the Ukrainian forces. It's a very good move by Poland, NATO and the United States, and it will bolster the Ukrainian defences against the Russian invasion.
As you said, the Ukrainian military has fought valiantly, arguably a lot better than most Western analysts had predicted. But Russia does continue to make advances, particularly in the south. What's the end game here, do you think? Do you think the Kremlin is going to successfully take over half the country, try to partition it?
Well, that's the thing with war. You just can't predict outcomes. There are still many, many uncertainties. And even with the great transparency of this war through social media and the great work of journalists on the ground, there are still many, many things we're not seeing and that we don't understand about this war. There are lots of potential outcomes, but, foreseeably, with the Russians having committed almost 100% of the forces already, we're seeing combat fatigue set in from them, despite some of their gains in the south and in the east. We could see this move into a stalemate in the coming weeks.
You've written a lot about this, and you've recently written that you believe that Ukraine should be preparing for an insurgency. How does a nation prepare for that kind of stage of a conflict? Because presumably that's when things really start to break down in a country.
Well, it's not clear that even if there was, a cessation of hostilities even now, that the Russians would give up the gains that they've already made in the south or the east. So the Ukrainians have the option in those areas to support an insurgent movement, a resistance movement, if you will, that would attack the Russians from all directions. And not just physically. I mean, hackers are also part of resistance movements these days. So you would see attacks on the Russians both in the cyber realm, the information domain, and also on the ground. The government would lead this by providing supplies, by providing replacements where possible, but most importantly, the provision of moral support by saying you are doing the right thing here. The Ukrainians have fought with great purpose so far, and any insurgent movement in even small parts of the country would also have that very important purpose.
Just lastly, Mick, the human cost of this war has already been absolutely horrendous. How much worse is it likely to be if Russian forces actually move into suburban areas in Kyiv and actually try to take that city by force?
I think we're really just talking about degrees of horrific. It's already horrific what the Russians have done to the Ukrainian people. It's just adding to that suffering that's unnecessary, the destruction that's absolutely unnecessary, the breakdown of Ukrainian infrastructure in a way that we haven't seen in Europe since the Second World War.
Mick Ryan, retired Army General, Major General rather, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.